I've never really talked super publicly about like play experiences. I mean, I did a little bit on Aubrey Marcus's podcast. It's funny. I was like, I'm not going to talk about the play experiences. I'm not going to talk about the play experiences. And Aubrey like looks at me point blank and he's like, so what about the community play experiences? And I was like, we're here to tell the truth. We're here to tell the truth. This is like a few years ago, actually. And I do want to clarify for everyone, because when someone says play parties, right, it's like a sex party, basically where sexuality to me is welcomed and embraced as part of the party experience. And the reason I want to clarify it is because I think when I say sex party or play party, right, I'm going to say play party from now on, people go to what I experienced. Like when I moved to New York City, I'd never been to a play party before. Actually, I went to one play party when I was about 19. My 31-year-old roommate in San Francisco was like, I didn't want to be a Virgo. I was like pissed off about being a Virgo because we're like all like anal retentive and serious.
Yeah, and also you built like epic businesses. Thank you, being a Virgo.
I'm also messy as fuck. So I was like...
You know, every gift has a challenge.
I don't know what time it is to save my life, right? Like, you've lived with me, you know. Like, Blue Lake texted me. She's like, I'm going to be late to the podcast. I was like, we on Layla time, you know? Like,
I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late. I was training in the military. I was in the Air Force. If I was a second late, the entire platoon was fucked. And so it was like, there's so much pressure on me of like being late. I'm like, Layla, I'm in traffic. It took me an hour to get here. She's like, we're on Layla time, which is
I was like, we were probably going to start 20 minutes late anyways. So
yeah. We're good.
We're so good. I was like, take your time. They both have their benefits. Anyways, I was like not into being a Virgo, and my 31-year-old roommate was like, come to a play party and the vast majority of people will be Virgos because they're like these secret, like sexy, like erotic creatures who have enough, like people respect them enough to give them positions of power, but they're like these like crazy kinky weirdos deep down inside. I was like, I could maybe get down with that sign. Like I could maybe that's why I was born a Virgo. I don't know. People who know me in business now are like, oh yeah, you're a Virgo. But like if you know me in relationship to like washing the dishes, like there ain't no Virgo in me. I have to work really hard to not look like a fucking mess in the way that I dress. Like some people, it's like so second nature for me. Anyway, so I went to the first play party. She like brought me to people and I was all scared. And I was like, what's your astrological sign? And like there were a lot of Virgos. And then I ran away. I was not ready. I was not ready for that opening. And then when I moved to New York with Andrew, I felt the most at home at sex parties because I had been living in the jungle where people were so free. And we would do tantric rituals and practices. And I was starved for people feeling more liberated. And in New York, I think maybe I made out with a woman once and like went down on her. But the whole time in New York City, I never hooked up with anyone. I barely even hooked up with Andrew at play parties because those parties didn't speak to my soul, but I felt at home where people were more shameless about their sexuality. And those sex parties, I would say, were a little bit more like people were drinking, they were doing drugs. There was like, it was for me hard to watch sex that looked disconnected and pornographic in the sense, not the sense that like I love wild sex. I love like all kinds of like intense things. I love exploring boundaries. I love power play. I love BDSM. I love it all. But when I say pornographic, I mean it looked like women were doing it for men's gratification and it looked disconnected. It looked hollow. It didn't look like it came from the heart. And I didn't like that. That never spoke to me. So I think when I say sex party, for a lot of people listening and for a lot of women, you might imagine that kind of sex party, that's what's happening. That A, never spoke to me. B, for me personally, and I don't say this to shame anyone, I would be totally shameless, I realized never slept with a man at a play party other than my partner, right? If I was in partnership at the time, yes, I would make love with my partner sometimes. Because for me, a play party has never been about hooking up with a stranger, but that can be part of the nourishment for some people, a new experience, a novel experience, right? For me, and I feel like this comes from my high priestess lineage, I want people to remember Eros and hedonistic celebration as a path to God, because it is. That you can find yourself in your erotic expression when it's safe, when it's fun, when it's playful, in a way that brings you home to yourself, that in a way that brings you home to the divine. And I believe that we were meant to express our sexuality a bit more communally and a bit more in play and a bit more wildly than we have been socialized to do. That this extreme, so much shame around masturbating, so much like, oh, I just, like if someone saw me having sex, I'd be horrified. There's this cracking open where it's like, we love dancing with loads of other people. You want to dance with every person on the dance floor. You can dance at home alone in your room, and yet there's something beautiful about dancing with other people. There's an energy, there's a vibe, there's something that cracks open. And so for me, like a play experience is kind of like being on a dance floor with your eros. It's a play field. And so for me, it was much more getting back to ancient ecstatic rites of the goddess, where we worshipped through the beauty and exploration and power of our eros. And that's not to say that for anyone else it can't be about fucking strangers or having wild experience, like pushing the envelope as far as you can, because some of my friends, like that's what a play experience is for them. They love that. For me, it was more like, let's taste ecstasy, and that might be sitting in yab yum and making out, or that might be a pussy massage, or that might be having a really consensual, beautiful threesome that's like life-changing. And so it's like there's not another word for it, but I wish there was, because those experiences don't look like most play parties or most sex parties. And the intention for me behind them, actually, I never wanted to throw them because I didn't want to be associated with them, but I surrendered. Like life asked me to do it. And I had to get over my egoic fear that people would think like, oh, Layla Martin blah, 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 does X, Y, and Z. Just be like, people can think what they want. I serve the goddess, and the goddess wants these ecstatic rites and rituals of erotic power and freedom. So I will do it. I will show up for it. And it's been so beautiful. It honestly feels like part of what the ancient high priestesses were doing, holding these like sacred spaces for divine erotic expression.